before we head down into the feature match area. 36% is it, Jim?
Ooh, that's a little more than we thought there.
A little bit.
That's a lot. You know, it's funny how much more 36 looks than like 31 or 32, you know?
Dude, it's 5 or, you know, maybe 4%. Like,
yeah.
That's math.
I couldn't even count that high.
Yeah, I was helping you out.
I appreciate it. That's why you're here with me. But that's a lot, you know, and that is certainly, you know, over a third of the field. You know, again, I think that a lot of, you know, from what I've talked to, a lot of the good players in there are playing a deck. I do think there is a bit of an element. I'm going to call out a lot of good players here. Of kind of just being ready to accept this is the best deck, I'm just going to play it, and not looking for that extra oomph, that extra edge, you know?
Yeah, maybe they just don't want to be wrong, too. You know, you feel bad if you're wrong.
For sure, you know, and there's a lot. I think there's a lot of like safetiness in amongst very, very good players where they don't want to take a risk. I'm just gonna play the best deck. I'm gonna find a good list for it, whatever. But that's a big statement. And then our only other deck in the double digits is Omniscience. A deck that had a great showing in Minneapolis 2 weeks ago. 3
copies in the top 8, absolutely.
And it's interesting to see here that the next 3 most played decks all potentially sport a good matchup against Izzet. In theory, you know, that is not always true in practice, but, you know, Omniscience, of course, has all of our lockdowns, and then Oculus, notably, often has a pretty good matchup against the Prowess decks, although the Oculus decks are still kind of finding their footing a little bit. I think that the exact list hasn't really been nailed down yet, and, of course, we saw Jeskai Control win the tournament in Minneapolis, beating many, many Izzet decks along the way. So, we got Overlords, we got Mono Red Aggro falling from grace here. The mouse package, the much maligned mouse package, has really fallen out of favor here for Steelcutter and friends. You know, down to 4%, and then Gruul Bice is way at the bottom, 0.8%.
Gruul Delirium is over. I guess they have the same copies, but all right, Gruul, poor mice.
Yeah, and then the big thing for me here, I think, is this next section is Dimir and Mono Black. These decks had phenomenal win rates in previous events, and these black cards look pretty well lined up too.
Yeah, absolutely. So metagame looks great. We'll be talking about it a little bit later in the event as well, but looks like our players are ready to go down in the feature match. So let's jump on in down. Get ready to see if Casey Miller can defend. I don't think we've ever seen, well, I mean, assuredly, we've never seen someone defend their regional championship in the same season because, well, you know, that the U.S. is one of the few places where there are 2 of them, but wouldn't that be incredible?
It's a big tournament.
Yeah, two big tournaments, that's for sure. So Jeskai Oculus down below here from Brent Clift, and Casey Miller up top with Jeskai Control. How do you like this matchup? How does it play out? It's
a pretty interesting one. You know, the Oculus deck is kind of weird because, like, it's almost more based on, like, how smooth is their draw, how is their play, how's their sideboarding. It has a pretty flexible matchup spread overall. 2 main deck spell peers, going to be pretty big here, of course. The big thing about the Oculus deck is it doesn't do super great against larger creatures.
Yeah.
You know, so a 4/5 dragon in play can really muck up the works. You know, we see Torch Tower, Braid, 1 into the Floodmaw, these Glacial Dragon Hunts as well. So if Casey's able to establish, you know, some big creatures in play, kind of get control of the game. Should be favored, but a lot of play on the Oculus side for sure.
How about just a second Prof's Eidetic Memory on turn 3 with no big creature in the yard? How do you feel about that start?
That is not where Brent wants to be.
Not it. Not it. Okay, so Brent, not the greatest start there, but hey, sometimes this happens. You know, this deck, similar to Omniscience, kind of is a plus B style. It's weird to say combo deck, but you really are trying to assemble the Oculus into the yard, helping hand to get it back. That is your ideal play. Now, there's a lot of stuff that you can do to bridge the gap in the middle there, but that is kind of the big thing. And Brent Cliff just saying go on turn 3. Yikes.
Yeah, it's not A plus B. It's A plus B and then C plus D and then E plus F. There's a lot of little mini micro combos here. You know, you want to have discard to go with your Mako. You want to have, you know, your draw spells to go with your Profs. You need to have your graveyard stuff. You need cards to give your Oculus. You need to discard the right card. There's so many moving parts to this deck. When it works amazingly, it looks like a well-oiled machine.
Yes.
And then sometimes this happens.
Yeah, and this was a deck you played at the Pro Tour where Matt Nass won, right? You and your team decided Oculus was the deck for you, and you didn't even, you know, the list might have not been as finely tuned now or as powerful as it was back then, correct?
Yeah, but there was definitely some of this too then as well, where there were some games where you draw a few cards, your hand is just 3 Oculus and 2 helping hands, and you're like, what am I doing with my life right now?
Yes.
So it's a deck with a pretty wide spread of outcomes.
Yeah, you can get a helping hand to your Sunday being free at times, huh? Land go again from Casey Miller, 7 mana in play, almost assuredly a plethora of counter spells, and we'll see what Casey can do. And this game's got to be favoring Casey Miller for sure.
Yeah,
right?
that is one way to do it. Brent did discard Oculus to hand size last turn, but that is not the way you want to do it in a matchup like this.
Oculus is back. I bet it's going to be on the battlefield for a small amount of time, and there it goes. Parting Guest.
May I offer you a fish in this trying time?
Parting Gust, excuse me, yes. Enjoy your fish. That Oculus is exiled for good.
So long, and thanks for all the fish.
Excuse me, did Casey not have the fish? Casey's gifting the fish. We'll go ahead and get Casey a GRV here for not supplying the fish that's been gifted.
Yeah, party foul for sure.
Party foul for sure.
Yeah, this game is getting really ugly for Brent. You know, I can only imagine there's a few more Oculus and helping hands in hand, but giving Casey this time, you know, this is just like kind of your classic control versus creature deck, you know, where creature deck kind of is the aggressor, has to get things going. There obviously are good interaction points for Brent, but they require having a board presence of some kind.
Absolutely. Yeah, starting off with Prof's Eidetic Memory, great card. Always kind of want to have one of those. But not having a Mako on turn 1, not having any pressure on turn 3, 4, maybe even 5, ends up being a little brutal. So the fish has arrived. We're going to get an attack in and start the pressure. 22 more turns, Jim.
This is a load-bearing fish.
Yeah,
This little fish has got a lot of work to do. You know, we're hoping for a great white shark or something here, not little Finding Nemo or something like that.
Exactly, yeah, that is for sure the babiest of fish. Still nothing going on from Casey, but we've seen it time and time again. There's plenty to be doing with your mana from the Jeskai deck.
Yeah, there's not much that needs to happen on Casey's turn. Shiko and split up, stock up, of course, the other up spell. Aside from that, interaction, counter spells, the works.
Yep. I heard a quote from someone on socials be like, yep, I'm about to play a tournament with Dig Through Time, Mole Drifter, and Lightning Helix in Standard. I'm about to have the greatest time ever. And I'm like, you know what? That does sound good.
Yeah, it is a really sweet deck for sure.
It's so sweet. If you have never cast Shuko and targeted stock up in your yard, you have truly never lived, as that is one heck of a combo.
That's funny here because we were joking with the fish. This fish actually does bear a pretty big load. So it's a way to put counters from Profs on. You know, Profs is a card where, you know, you really want to have a creature in play at all times, and you're getting Profs going so you can get the value off those draws. And then, of course, it can wear the map counters as well. So having a creature in play, be it the tiniest of fish, is still very, very relevant here. Just kidding.
Maybe it was a minnow. Maybe now it's like a carp. You know, I mean, now it's dead, but if we got that up to 3 or 4, maybe we're up to salmon, you know, but.
It's in fish jail.
Fish jail, okay.
Yeah. Someone it's been captured. It was a little baggy at a carnival, and now it's brought home, and it's in the tank.
It's got to go back to school, huh?
Yep, definitely.
Brutal. All right, 3 mana. Here is a very powerful haste threat. The equation has been changed. The one of in the main deck here from Casey. Change the equation has felt better and better for me, you know? Like, being able to counter pretty much everything from the Izzet deck and still do a lot of work in the other matchups. Change the equation is pretty impressive, and Casey tends to agree, or obviously agrees since there's one in the main.
Yeah. Rarely dead, and then often very good when it is. And now we're seeing what I was saying earlier, where there's a bunch of Oculus and a bunch of helping hands. So does get to keep doing the thing here.
So Oculus finally manifests Dread, and we'll see what Casey has to be able to deal with these creatures. This feels like a Day of Judgment or some kind of Wrath, but instead we have Shiko.
Now the one saving grace for Brent here is that this has been a lot of turns for Casey without playing a card draw spell.
Yeah.
You know, no Morangraver Regent, no stock up. Finding that first stock up is pretty important, so your Shikos are always live to draw more cards. So Casey is actually a little light here.
Yeah. And I do think maybe Casey only has 1 card left in hand. At this point, that could easily be a brick. It could easily be a 3 steps ahead.
Oh,
baby.
I was going to say it, too. I was going to say, if this manifests as an Oculus and Brent can kind of start applying some pressure, the onus is actually on Casey to start put something together here.
I mean, that is the best feeling when you're playing this Jeskai deck, where you can hide an Oculus from the Oculus and have another threat. You know, you pretty much always factor that in where that creature is nothing. And then anytime it's anything more, you're like, why me, you know?
Yeah, a big thing to note here, too, is that lockdown was not without cost. The 1 copy of Roiling Dragonstorm in Casey's deck is kind of a great way to mitigate Flood. It's an extra way to kind of find your extra spells and so on and so forth. And it would have gone to hand with the Dragon and then been recast as well. So that's sort of that velocity Casey is looking for. That ended up being lost.
All right. And it looks like we have another Manifest Red. And we get to start it off from Casey. Didn't attack the Oculus as well.
I'm feeling for Casey right now because I've been in this spot so many times in my career playing both control decks and goblin decks where you're just dying to draw your Goblin Ringleader, your Matron out of the goblin deck, or your control deck, whatever the card draw spell of choice is. Chase's Ingenuity, Dig Through Time, whatever it is. You're just, please gotta just draw 1, because once you find the 1, it'll turn into many, many more, but you have to find the first one to get the chain going.
Exactly. Stock-ups are very good at finding other stock-ups. I suppose ringleaders are pretty good at finding other ringleaders too, huh?
I wouldn't know.
You wouldn't know?
I wouldn't know.
You're not a big goblin guy.
Yeah.
No, okay. So no more parting gusts here. No more gifted fish. But instead, how about some maps? And just 1 card in hand from Casey. Pretty clearly not a stock-up, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, the somewhat desperation dragon here of just taking a 5-mana Get Lost is tough.
But that being said, the battlefield is stable. Casey's at a high life total, so Casey Miller has plenty of time to be able to find some things.
This is kind of the fear with control decks, I think, where folks shy away from control decks occasionally because this happens sometimes. You just draw a lot of removal spells, but you give your opponent so much time.
Yes.
You know, and they have time to, all right, well, I'm just going to keep drawing cards. Oh, look, I have this dead, quote-unquote, Abrade and Torch Tower. Now it actually is relevant. Now you have to counter it. And oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh,
woo.
wow.
Woo.
So a lot just happened. That was 2 removal spells on the Shiko. That was just 4 mana instant speed clone from the 3 steps ahead. Had the double spell pierce to interact with it, and now Casey is on nothing. This fish is about to get a little more swole. Not the case. Take 3. Not bad. So this put Brent in a position where he could possibly do something here, but 1 stock up or something could really do some damage. Looks like we saw a Dispelling Exhale off the top from Casey. So, hey, 2 mana counter unless you pay 2. Not going to be great on the battlefield here.
Yeah, now that waiting room is getting awful stuffy. You know, we really got to find one of these card draw spells. Brent's clock isn't amazing, but it is still a clock, and having a clock of any kind is so important against a control deck.
Looks like I saw a land off the top there. I think that was a Verge that Casey left in hand in case you find a River Regent. Oh. And there it is, the GOAT.
Finally.
Stock up. Came to hang, and Casey could not cast that any faster. We saw the Shiko, saw Get Lost. Either way, there's probably another stock up that's going to be on the stack here real shortly.
Yeah, they come in bunches. You know, once you find one, you find another, and then that chain starts to go. And at this stage in the game, when Casey has so much mana available, the sky's the limit.
Yeah. And there it found a Biza as well. That's actually a picture of Casey Miller there on the far left of that stock up picture. Just all the goods Casey's going to have at the end of this turn.
I'll have to get an altarist in there to add the trophy.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. All right, so Brent may have got some fish, but now it's time for Casey to have some fish as well.
I think in our off rounds, I might head down to the feature match area and draw some proper fish on those tokens.
I think you should.
Yeah.
I think you absolutely should. I don't know. I like them. Simplicity of these fish. All right, now we're going to draw some cards. Cast ourselves the one of Winter Night Stories. It's a spicy one in this deck for sure.
Yeah, it is quite good. It is not stock up good, though. And the thing is that at this stage in the game, you do not want to be trading card draw spell blows with a control deck. You know,
Yeah.
they're always going to beat you on that angle.
Yeah, and you're not. I mean, you do draw 2. You know, you draw 3, discard 1, so you do kind of net the same amount of cards as stock up, but you're not seeing as many. But the Harmonize is quite strong. And here is a Sheltered by Ghost. We kind of saw it in our last match where, you know, you put a giant creature underneath a Leyline Binding. It's equally as scary here putting a Biza underneath that. But maybe we go for lockup as well? Probably not.
It's really tough. Yeah, I mean, by getting locked down, you're giving the Dragonstorm 2.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Uh-oh.
And
He's
now,
like, oh, can I have that one?
And now, if the Sheltered by Ghost goes to the graveyard, it'll nuke the entire board. It'll hit the fish, the manifest, the profs, and everything else too. So,
yeah.
Desperation play for Brent here.
That fish. Everything is riding on it here. They're talking about active player, active, non-active player, how it works here. You know, scientists are still trying to figure out how it works based on which player's turn it is.
Yeah, so basically how it works is the active player, the player whose turn it is, always stacks their abilities first.
Yeah.
So theirs go on the stack, then the non-active player's ability go on the stack, and theirs will resolve first. So you can have very, very different things happening based on whose turn it is.
Yeah.
Can be very, very important when you have things like Disciple of the Vault or effects like that, where one player will win before the other one and vice versa.
Yep, makes a lot of sense. This fish is full on gigantic. This is a shark at this point, right?
Hammerhead shark, I think?
I think hammerhead, probably, yeah. This thing is swole, but still probably can't attack very well. And here is a recommission.
I like this turn from Brent. You know, like realistically, Brent is building a pretty insane house of cards. There is a lot that can go wrong. But Brent is clearly pretty far behind here. And Brent's best chance to win this game is basically Casey bricks for a turn or two, and Brent's able to really turn the corner with his profs and his fish and kind of just get it done quickly. It's probably going to blow up in his face, realistically. But actually, it's really important for players to give themselves a chance to actually win a game that looks almost unwinnable either way.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I think playing Magic to not lose and playing Magic to win are two very different things. And, you know, one of our co-workers for the weekend is one of the best at it. You know, Reed Duke always playing the games to his outs, win some absurd games by doing that every single time. And you give yourself those percentage points.
Unfortunately, though, there's the blow up.
Yeah, and you know, after the stock up, I felt like this game was pretty much out of reach. But I still agree with you. I like how Brent Cliff played the game and gave himself a shot here. So here is Shiko into stock up. I see 3 steps ahead to have that cancel effect available. And now here is the time that Casey Miller just has the most fun ever, and every control mage. The spot where you're like, yep, I can't really lose, but the game won't end for 3 or 4 turns is going to be a blast.
Yeah, I think if you're Brent here, we should pack up going to game 2. I think that, you know, these games can be very, very grindy, very, very low chance to win, much greater risk of a draw. You know, we're at 34 minutes left is a good amount, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But if we were to see a really long game 2, you know, things could get a little bit dicey.
Yeah, totally agree. If Brent's hand is like 2 lands, get it out of here. If it's an Oculus or whatever, maybe jam it, hope for the best. Play one more turn. Looks like it was double fear of missing out. And passes the turn. We got a 2-3 up against Shiko. And this is usually where the control players speed up because they know it's over. They just have to go through the motions and kind of figure out the end game from here.
Yeah, kind of make sure not to screw up too.
Yeah.
You know, don't let a one game you know, slip out of your hands. But yeah, great shape here.
Looks like that was a stock up with 4 lands, and I want to say a Shiko. I could be wrong. It was at least 1 spell. So nothing amazing. And there's how you know the game's almost over. When that card gets cast for 6 mana instead of 4.
It's funny, I almost wouldn't have minded bouncing the lockdown too.
Yeah.
You know, you get the Dragonstorm draws. You can re-lock down later, but whatever. 6-1, half it as the other, in great shape there.
Absolutely. So that is our defending RC champion, Casey Miller, winning game number 1. So from Brent Cliff's side, what are we bringing in up against Casey Miller? And does this match get to be favorable post-board with from the Oculus side?
Yeah, I think it helps out a ton. You know, we've got a lot more interaction here. Disable stroke, negate, no more lies. I love how this like package is so stock. Every Oculus deck has 1 no more lies, 1 negate, and 1 stroke, which seems so like arbitrary, but it makes sense to have a spread because the Oculus deck sees so many cards.
And in an open deckless tournament, there's some value to making your opponent kind of guess which one you could have, right?
Yeah, absolutely, honestly. It makes it a lot harder. Big card here is Chandra Spark Hunter. Planeswalkers are typically very, very good against these control decks. There are a few get lost.
As Casey Miller's reading it as we speak.
There you go. And so that one's a great threat you can deploy that you don't have to worry about, you know, Day of Judgment or temporary lockdown. You kind of get it out there and do its thing. It also loots, which is kind of cool too. But so mostly bringing the counter spells, kind of cutting these torch towers, these kind of extraneous cards. And then on Casey's side, there is some graveyard hate here in the flanker, the Kutzul's flanker. It's kind of an awkward card, though, because it is pretty hard to tag a graveyard at the time you might want to. It's expensive to leave up. The body is not super relevant. It's not in the air. You can block a FOMO or a Tursa if there aren't any counters involved, but it's like kind of tough. Barrage is a big one to kill Oculus, obviously. You can get to a negate battle a little bit as well. Tidebinder has some utility, too. There are some abilities, but nothing here is like, you know, knockdown. Wow, I'm definitely slamming these in, except for the barrages.
Yeah, it makes sense from Casey, too. I think the deck would rather play Rest in Peace like it's a better card against those kind of things. But, you know, when you're playing a deck that your kind of endgame engine here is Shiko returning stock up, you don't want to cancel out your own ability to do so. So Flanker's, I guess, the second best option here. But we got another tournament here to talk about. Let's talk about SCG Con Orlando. Jim, this is going to be a lot of fun. SCG Con Orlando is when we have planetary rotation. This is going to be when Standard rotates. So this is our next Spotlight series. You can check out more information at #Spotlight Planetary Rotation, but I cannot wait for this event. Standard after a big rotation like this is going to be so exciting.
Nothing like it. You know, it's getting to see every player just put on their brewing hat and it enter into a tournament where there's so little information is the absolute best. You know, you get to see great players put their takes on things. You know, brewers who might, you know, have a little more trouble brewing an established format, have that day one. We've seen so many decks win these day one tournaments that ended up being kind of like bad, but they were so fun.
Yes.
They were good for the weekend, and they were really, really fun. So it's a great event in that regard. And
about 80% of them were the Jessup brothers, right?
Yeah,
that would make those decks.
Or Todd Anderson.
Oh, of course.
Todd was notorious for winning week one with the worst deck you've ever seen. But yeah, and it's also a Spotlight Series event, so just show up and play. You're a brewer. You've been playing F&M, getting back into Standard. Show up with your deck, and we could be here talking about you. And there's nothing like, you know, a home brew winning a tournament, which we kind of saw a little bit 2 weeks ago, where, you know, Jeskai Control was not home brew-y, but definitely a lesser deck in the metagame, not one of the top like 5 established decks.
August 29th through the 31st, if you are interested in joining us there. And hey, I mean, coming in the end of the summer, things are starting to cool down, hang out in Florida a bit. I'm all about it. That sounds like a blast. So I'll also be right before, about 30 days right before the Standard Pro Tour in Atlanta as well. So we'll start, maybe see some Pro Tour players that come out to play a little early, or at least all of them will be on their couch watching, getting ready to see what decks do well and start testing with our testing teams.
Yeah, no better event to watch. It is so much fun to watch, and it's like Christmas. It's like everyone got these toys. Let's see how they play with them. What are they going to do, you know? How are they going to work them together? Oh, they did that thing that I was thinking about, or oh, did the thing I wasn't thinking about. I didn't even consider you could use a card like that. Wow, awesome.
Exactly. And with the new set, it's Christmas in space, bro.
Everything's better in space.
Merry Christmas to all of us. That's going to be a lot of fun. Really looking forward to seeing. You know, I don't think we've ever went to space in any kind of plane, right? With Magic, this has got to be a first, right?
Yeah, the closest is like the Blind Eternities. It's like the void between realms where the Eldrazi live, and they are the most alien-esque thing in Magic. But yeah, it's a new ground, and it's exciting too. You know,
there's not a lot of ground in space, though, Jim.
All right,
have you looked into space?
I'm going to call it a show, folks. Thanks for watching. I'm Jim Davis signing off. I will see you next time. But yeah, it's really cool seeing Magic explore these kind of new territories with their own IP. You know, where it's like, oh, cool, like we didn't do that yet. What could we do with this? And so many of my favorite sets, you know, Mirrodin, for example. Yeah. Like an all-metal world. It's all about artifice and stuff. That's really knew you can do that, and ended up being a really awesome set that now it feels like just part of Magic, but back then it was this crazy new thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And no real busted cards came out of that set, right? Pretty chill stuff?
Yeah. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. Oh, I guess that's true. Technically, Unfinity had space stuff.
Okay.
That's a total blind spot for me. I don't know how you feel about that.
Same.
So,
I don't know. I don't really know what's going on in that set as well.
Yeah.
So, all right, here we go. Game time here. We got Brent. Plays a land to start it off. Looks like we have Brent out of mulligan to 6. Let's see if the start is a little better for Brent. Brent was really kind of out of this game when he just really went to turn 3 and just cantripped. Kind of did nothing else. But this game, this is what I'm talking about. Fear of missing out, discard the Oculus. This is kind of putting Casey just in check, kind of scared for the rest of the game that the Oculus could come back. Now we're heading to combat, gets in a couple of damage. And let's see what the follow-up is for Brent.
This is also where open deck lists come into play a lot. You know, where Brent can very, very happily just dump his Oculus in the graveyard, not scared of Rest in Peace, not scared of Ghost Vacuum.
Yeah.
You know, if it's a flanker or whatever, sure. But, you know, and the goal here is not just jam all your cards. It can be more of a setup.
Yeah.
Put it in there for now, and let's play some other stuff like the Steam Core Scholar and make you deal with this. And then when you're exhausted, we can pop the Oculus in.
Yep. Makes sense to me. Couple counter spells to the yard. Casey's not interested there and passes back with 2 mana available. Let's see if this FOMO gets in there. Still very far away from Delirium. Just gets in a couple of points and ships it back. And oh my God, it's Lightning Helix.
Oh my God. Just kidding.
Get Spell Pierced. Spell Pierce to be able to protect it and get another card towards Delirium. I feel like you got to be happy with that exchange, but the one thing that Brent is missing once again here is the pressure. But it makes sense. When you don't have the pressure, you got a lot of interaction. Counters that. Looks like Casey has 3 cards in hand, and we're about to enter that 5 mana phase where if Brent is out of counter magic now and Casey can go Shiko into stock up, you got to feel like, uh-oh, maybe I fired off the counter spell too soon, huh?
That was a huge sequence for Brent.
Yeah.
Because No More Lies, of course, will exile the stock up.
Oh, yeah, of course.
So lining up the Spell Pierce on the Helix, and then specifically the No More Lies on the stock up is great sequencing and then great future planning. Because what Casey has access to in the graveyard is a huge determiner for how the game's going to go with these Shikos.
Okay, Into the Flood Maw was discarded. And just instant and creatures, so no Delirium. Gets on in there for a good chunk of damage.
Terse is great here, too, because it's a fast threat, it's good post-Wrath, and then it's also a card that doesn't get hit by Lockdown either. So one of the better threats that Brent has access to.
How scared are you, if you're Casey, that Brent only discarded 1 card there, too? Maybe only had 1 card, actually. That would change things.
Not so scared if I have Beza.
Yeah.
Beza's a house. And Casey, I love the 4 Beza of the deck.
Oh, yeah.
Like, Beza really is one of the better cards in the format. Folks usually play 2 or whatever, but, like, it is just so good.
Just read the card.
Yeah.
I know it takes a while to read it, but read it twice.
Right.
And then put 4 in your 75 if you're playing a deck that ever wants to play from behind, because that's the thing. This isn't a proactive card. I mean, it's a proactive threat in the sense that you can play it, on 4 mana even if you're ahead. But this is a card where if you ever plan to be behind in a game, play 4 Beza in your 75. I mean, it's an incredible, incredible card.
It's not even that, too. It's just like when you're on the play, it almost always just draws a card, too.
Yeah.
Like, on the play basis, like even in the matchups where, like, it's not, against a control deck, you're playing Domain or whatever, just a 4/5 draws a card. That's great.
And most of the time will gain you that life, too. Sure, you're not
Yes.
getting the fish. Sure, you're not getting the treasure because you're on the play. But, I mean, that reads as a fantastic card here. So Get Lost on the Lightsaber. Light Shatter, excuse me.
I wasn't going to say anything because I was super happy.
That
in my head,
cool,
I was
right?
just like,
Yes.
Star Wars Universes Beyond when?
It's coming. Absolutely. That'd be cool.
That would be cool.
All right, so Prof's Eidetic Memory on the top. Now, this is something you can put into the yard and hit Delirium, right? But we already attacked. Maybe that was... a little out of sequence. But when you had the other attacker coming in, you know, maybe we didn't want to lean in, kind of go all in with a face-up removal spell, or pretty face-up. And here's the big old dragon. We might not have stock up to bring back, but Get Lost or Helix, solid. Get Lost being a much better at killing the fear of missing out when it's a 4/5.
Turns out when you staple Snapcaster Mage to Serra Angel, you get a pretty good Magic card.
You get a pretty good one. Yeah, absolutely. Poor Serra Angel, though. Not going to be played in Standard anytime soon with Shiko hanging around.
Listen, Serra Angel's a legend.
Yeah.
All right, so Serra Angel right now has her feet up on the porch, sipping lemonade.
Yeah.
You know, it's like Thanos in Infinity War. My job here is done. I have nothing more to do. I'm just going to
Exactly.
I'm going to live my life here and enjoy what I've got.
Been having iconic moments throughout Magic's history for a very long time. Change the Equation was the last card in Casey's hand. Now the dragon starts to go, and now it's the spot. If Casey draws stock up, draws something big like that, huge advantage to Casey, but if he breaks a few times, Brent still has some cards and can come back. Oculus being a bigger threat than Shiko here, but just another Prof's Identic Memory. Not the start you want.
Yeah, I think having the maps and the profs in play is pretty important.
Yeah.
Because sizing up is a thing that the Oculus deck does very, very well.
Very well.
Which allows it to push through these larger creatures. So FOMO right now is only a 2/3, but add those profs counters. Now add some map counters, and all of a sudden it can rumble with the dragon.
Yep, looks like we are sacking that map. And this one almost assuredly has to be Delirious Enchantment. Land, instant sorcery. Yep, we got it. So we're good to go on double attacks with fear of missing out. So Casey really does need to be finding something for sure here.
Yeah, the thing is that, once again, yeah, Casey's kind of lacking this card draw. Just please, God, give me this card draw effect. Go back to turn 3. That No More Lies on that first stock up ended up being super relevant. Super
huge, as we would have probably saw maybe 2 stock ups. You know, that fear of missing out was a creature that had to be dealt with, but you're totally right. All right, Prof's Identic Memory at number 3. That will at least size fear of missing out to be able to attack through the Shiko, so still an important aspect. This is going to be an attack for 10 if Casey has nothing here.
Wow. FOMO's a great card.
So good.
Just phenomenal.
I love it.
Like, you forget about this double attack thing because, you know, it's not the primary purpose of the card most of the time.
Yeah.
But it is so potent, especially in this deck. Did we actually, we didn't miss the second props trigger here, did we?
Oh, you're right. We totally did. So you do get another one there because you start at combat.
Right.
That works well with Urbrass Forge, you know, any of those kind of cards.
Yeah, and then also there are the Vigilance creatures in the deck too.
Yeah.
So this is like the best FOMO deck ever. It uses every part of the card amazingly, and you can push through amazing chunks of damage between profs and the Vigilance creatures and the sizing up.
Yep. We'll see if it comes down to mattering. The missed 1 damage here. Here is another Shiko. Just a Helix to face, though. No Get Lost, anything like that. So that is just buying some time. That was not great. But to be fair, this fear of missing out, if it had 1 more counter on it, was a lethal attacker here. So it matters. Now, it's not too hard for Brent to just draw 1 card here to put it into that space, but
still, chump blocking with your dragon to deal some damage is not exactly where Casey wants to be.
No, not at all. All right, gonna draw a card, see if we want to discard. No discard. But that will be 1 additional counter on the fear of missing out, and you got to think if Casey had Get Lost, something like that, it would have been cast already before there was a chance that there could be a counter spell drawn. So this is probably a chump blocker. Oh.
I'm looking for a Graveyard Exile, so no Delirium.
Yep.
Checking to see if it's intervening if clause so that the trigger can go on the stack, and then it checks some resolution for the graveyard being full. So this is a way to kind of sneak the flanker in.
That is how it works, though, right? Like, this does not have 2 combats now?
I believe, yes.
Yeah, I would think the same, because the ability does stack. But we didn't even want to go, so what, this was 7 toughness. We did have the ability to double block that, right?
Yeah, and given the state of this game where Casey wants to just get as many turns as possible in this stock up waiting room.
Yeah.
So
that being said, Brent is at 3 now. So if this is Lightning Helix,
sure.
we almost could have had our Lightning Helix moment.
It's so funny because this is, like I was saying, more of like a mid-range deck than a control deck. You almost never look at your opponent's life total when you're playing control.
Yeah.
It just, can I get to the point of the game where I'm in control and I win? But yeah, 3 life is one shot.
All right, here's the spot. No delirium right now, so this is just an attack for 8. Casey can block the fear of missing out that, would not die here. Even with this boost up, this is 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 damage. So right now, Casey can just ignore it, fall to 1. Now you do have to still clear out the Scholar if Casey wants to win on the following turn. So Casey's kind of all in game plan. All right, never mind. Everything I was saying, nothing matters, and the game is almost assuredly over.
Yeah, we had a props there for the extra damage and the removal spell.
And 11.
Yeah.
And the 11 damage, and that will even it up here. Brent Cliff takes down game number 2, forces a game 3 with 16 minutes on the clock. Plenty fine.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little iffy. I think once sideboarding and shuffling goes down, but yeah, we saw in that game that the sizing up. The ability of this Jeskai Oculus deck to just never feel like its creatures are locked into a certain mode. They're always variable. They can always get bigger, and they can push through almost anything with time.
Yep, absolutely. And got to bring attention, like you were saying, right back to that stock up. That stock up, getting no more lies there, bought Brent just enough time. That was really, really excellent. So another thing that is excellent is the SCG newsletter. Jim, walk us through this.
Listen, you want to buy Magic cards. You want to play in Magic events. That's what we do as Magic players.
Yes.
And you never want to miss one. All right. So if there is a sale, if there is an event happening, you can find out. They'll email you, and not that often. I've been signing up for this for the newsletter for years. You're not getting one every day. It's not like once, twice a week you get an email saying, "Hey, there's a cool event coming up. Anybody want to go here? Flash sale. Don't miss out." I did need those dual lands for my deck. Thanks for that flash sale. Appreciate it at StarCityGames.com. So sign up for the newsletter, StarCityGames.com/newsletter, and never miss out.
And also, I've been emailing you every day, and you're yet to respond to me. Are you going to get around to those? Or?
You are blocked.
I am blocked?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I've been sending you long emails, great stories and everything, and you just had me blocked, huh?
I meant to say I've been reading them, and they're really, really interesting.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
excellent.
Really enjoy reading every single word of those. They bring me a lot of joy to my life and everyday experience.
Yeah, you signed up for the Corey newsletter at one point, and there's no, unsigning up. So, sorry about that. Looks like Brent is going down to 6.
I don't know how you make a time for it, honestly.
Yeah, no, it's brutal. Oh, no, that was a fast mulligan.
Yeah, I feel like this is an interesting match. One of the things about, winning a tournament, you come into your next tournament, and there are expectations where there weren't previously.
Yeah.
You are all of a sudden the target.
Yep.
Where last tournament you played, maybe you were an underdog, maybe you were, you were kind of just playing this event. But now you are the one player in the room that every player knows won the last one and wants to beat. And that can weigh on you in a few unique ways, where you feel a pressure that wasn't really there, and B, your opponents are gunning for you.
Yes.
And
they know what you're playing. I mean, I guess it's open deck list, so everyone knows, but still,
Right. And they've watched you play it too.
Yeah.
They can go back and watch your games. They could have studied you play this deck,
Yeah.
And if Brent wins this match, what a pump to start a tournament,
Oh, for sure.
I'm 2-0. I just beat the defending champ. You got to be feeling good. So a lot of pressure for this match, even though we are in the early rounds.
And I mean, if the flip side, if Casey takes this down, starts 2-0, it's just like, you know what? I'll go win another 20K. Why not? You know? Sure, Casey's already got that World Championship slot and the Pro Tour slot lined up, so not necessarily gaining anything on that front, but $20,000 and the ultimate bragging rights forever are definitely still on the table for Casey.
Yeah, there is an element to playing with house money here for sure.
Yes,
too.
yes. Yeah, I mean, I've definitely never had an opportunity where I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm already qualified for the World Championship. I'm just going to go play another tournament. No, that doesn't happen for a lot of players, that's for sure. So change the equation, getting the Prof's Eidetic Memory out of there, which is huge.
Yeah,
Great start.
Big step. We have seen Brent able to draw a lot of those. I think that's like the 9th memory that Brent has cast in this match so far.
At least.
But, yeah, huge as far as keeping this board under control.
And here is the Scholar.
Scholar, of course, looks a little less exciting without Profs on the board.
Yeah, if this was going to be a Sarah Angel at the end of this turn, that would have been real nice. Sarah Angel, get off the couch and come to the battlefield.
Out of retirement.
All right, we got a Flash 3-1 coming in, eating up the graveyard a little bit. Pretty minuscule for sure, but hey, Casey had the mana to spare. Wishes that was a stock up instead, but hey. It's not a perfect world.
I will say that is somewhat telling of Casey's hand, though, because the expected mode there would be the scry and gain life mode, right?
Yeah.
Look for a stock up, look for something cool, put something in the graveyard. So Casey's saying, hey, my hand's already pretty good. I'm just going to make sure you can't do your thing. No surprise delirium. And just get this body in play and start getting in. Lithomatic
Barrage takes down the Scholar. See what the follow-up is here for Brent. Maybe something like a Chandra. That would be a great turn for it. But Prof's Eidetic Memory number 15 hits the battlefield.
We got a deck check, Brett.
Yeah.
There's got to be 6 of those in there, right?
100%. Here's an attack for 3, and the pressure begins. And, you know, that's the thing about this Jeskai control deck. I'll say control in air quotes here. It is a tap-out control deck. You know, there's those 2 avenues. You're that draw-go deck, you know, that we've seen plenty of times, the Sphinx's Revelation style decks.
Ooh.
Think twice, you know, really get everyone excited there. Or it's this tap out thing that can actually just turn the corner pretty quick, and you can change the equation from being that control deck to being hyper aggressive here really quickly.
And speaking of battling on the stack, little counterspell war here over this recommission.
Yeah. Great stuff. Hey, that was not only countering something that counters your Scholar from coming back, but also another 3-1 body into play. And when you're at 13 already, and Brent is probably taking out a lot of removal, you know, you're not leaving in Torch the Tower or a Braid against this Jeskai control deck. So these 3-1s can get scrappy, as the Oculus deck is okay at playing defense. You know, if we would have got to combat here and that Scholar would have been a 6/6 Vigilance Flyer, great. You're good at attacking and blocking. But outside of that kind of stuff, not a great defensive deck or that great from playing from behind.
Yeah, and there's this weird shift where, like, we see Beza, again, being awesome, just 4/5 draw card on the play.
Yeah.
But, you know, Casey's deck can play this game pretty well because all these defensive removal spells can also just be used offensively. If there just happens to be a body or 2 in play and Casey is a little bit ahead, the corner can be turned very, very quickly where kill a thing, oh my God, Brent's at 3.
Yeah, and I mean, we've seen it plenty of times, maybe of older formats, and this is going to, you know, get all of you old school Magic players really excited, but Snapcaster Bolt, people, you know, I mean, the whole Shiko Lightning Helix, untap, Lightning Helix again, those kind of lines definitely can happen from this Jeskai control deck.
Ooh.
There is the stock up, and it looks like it's resolving. So not only are you going to get to find some good cards, but it's in the yard in case you find another Shiko. And you have that really awesome ability of getting card advantage attached with the 4/5 body.
Yeah, pretty interesting game. You know, there's just this sort of like Delver tempo thing going on here for Casey. But the thing is that, like, if this doesn't work, that's fine. That's great for Casey because it means we're going to enter the mid to late game with Casey at 20+ life and having, you know, a few utility lands in play and a pretty stable board. And Casey's deck is definitely favored in those games too.
Yeah. Yeah, the Quarry Mountain Monastery coming in. Do you think that's the best card in the format that's, you know, has the word Quarry in it?
I have to do a little more research, I think.
Okay.
You know, really kind of, you know.
Sorry I put you on the spot there.
Yeah,
bro.
I got to, you know, crunch some numbers.
Okay.
Take a look. It's close.
Yeah, it's got to be close.
Yeah, close.
Top 5 probably?
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Okay.
Close.
All right, here is the powerful 3-drop. We got Tursa coming into play. able to discard some cards, draw some cards. It can get boosted up to 5 power. It can use the ability that we don't see as often, but it's an incredibly strong ability. Attacks, get a random card from your yard. Never mind, get lost.
Get out of here.
Get out of here. Get lost, and mainly, you know, Casey was just like, please no Spell Pierce. And if not, Casey's feeling pretty good. This is an attack, putting Brent down to 4. 4's not 3 in this scenario, but you feel terrible if you're at 3 against this Jeskai control deck where you're behind on the battlefield and your opponent's at 23.
It's almost funny, if the Tursa had lived, does it even attack?
Yeah, it's a good point.
You
Does
know,
it have to block?
Right, like.
Ugh. Either way, feels quite bad. We got an all-powerful 1-1, and is this Tursa part 2?
This is a obviously big spot here. The fact that Casey is thinking about this is quite scary for Brent.
Okay, here is the activation from the Quarry Monastery.
This is where Casey's buffered life total really comes into play.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Casey is in no danger at all here. You know, one of these creatures is probably staying back, if not both of them, which really, really favors Casey.
And when you're this far ahead from the control side, you pretty much set aside that 5 mana and be like, I'm going to draw an extra card with this land every turn, and whatever mana I have to spare, I will use to interact, you know? And then that one turn, oh, you've got too much stuff. I'll use all 10 of my mana to completely decimate your board, something like that. But now we are going to see, do we attack with this Tursa? And it kind of looks like, with Brent's body language, that we said go.
Ooh.
And Tursa's gone. Maps for days.
Yeah, we can see, we were saying, you know, about this Jeskai deck being almost more of a mid-range deck. This land would be very, very bad in a draw-go deck, you know, where you must play the card on your next main phase.
Yeah.
Because this deck is mostly sorcery speed with a few counter spells. Wow.
Is that good?
Oh, man.
What were you saying about that land being bad? I'll let you finish. But,
yeah. Whoo, boy.
Oh, boy. Yeah, there's the lockdown. Deals with the blocker, puts Brent to 1, and all of a sudden your opponent got to tap 8 mana, play a lockdown off the top of the library for free here, and now Brent is well and truly in the defensive driver's seat. Casey's drawn 2 cards a turn. I can't imagine a scenario where you know, Brent pulls this match out. It would be quite lucky.
Yeah, it's just gonna. With all these helixes and ways to cast them.
There was a disdainful stroke, though, on Chico, so...
Okay.
So we play on, and I was going to say the card advantage land got tapped, but we wouldn't have been able to activate it anyways. But now it's time to start activating the draw 2 mode. Do we have land 5? Oh!
Yeah, and this is what I was saying earlier, where, like, Casey's done all this damage. There's just so much that Brent would need to do to get back into this game. And Casey has all the time in the world. And when your kill condition is simply cast a lightning helix, not too hard to figure out.
And a lightning helix off the top of the graveyard still counts as a lightning helix off the top, just like when we were watching that iconic moment back in the day on our dial-up internets. Lightning Helix is still winning the game.
I was there, Corey.
Were you?
I was there, Gandalf.
Oh,
I was in the Pro Tour. It was my first Pro Tour. I was in the viewing area, watching all the other Pro Tour players on the big screen, and the French contingent was not very happy.
Oh, yeah?
Many curse words were said in French and many other languages. Of course, their countrymen. You know, England versus France, obviously a big rivalry.
Sure.
And Olivier, you know, took it with grace. Countrymen did not. You know, obviously as the viewers, they can kind of emote and so on and so forth, but it was a lot of fun.